AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her fiancé to my wedding after a huge fight over a gift registry. So, this is going to be long, but I really need an outside perspective because my family is absolutely divided, and I can't tell if I'm overreacting. I, 29F, am getting married in about 6 months, and we've been working really hard on planning the wedding. My sister, Emily, 27F, has always been a bit dramatic, but I love her and I wanted her to be part of the big day. The issue started when we were finalizing our guest list and gift registry. Emily got engaged recently, and she was really excited about our registry, asking to borrow ideas for her own wedding. I didn't think it was a big deal, so I sent her some links to the registry. She ended up taking a few items I had marked for myself and bought them for her own wedding before her wedding. That hurt, but I brushed it off and didn't say anything because I figured it was just an innocent misunderstanding. The real conflict started last month. I was going through RSVPs and discussing the registry with my parents when Emily called. She demanded I remove some of the items from the registry because they might clash with her wedding colors, and she didn't want our families to get confused. I told her no, because those items were chosen specifically for our home and our taste, and that her wedding should be separate from ours. She got extremely upset and started saying that I was being selfish and ruining family harmony. I tried to calm her down and explain that my registry is for me and my fiancé, not for her, but she kept escalating. Then came a text that pushed me over the edge. She said, and I quote, "If you don't remove the items, I don't think I can in good conscience bring Mark to your wedding. It's just too stressful. Mark is her fiancé." At this point, I was furious because she was basically threatening to make my wedding about her drama over a registry. I calmly replied that I was sorry she felt that way, but that the registry was staying as is. She didn't respond for a week, then came back with a new threat. She would come alone and skip the wedding party photos, and she might even say things that would embarrass me in front of everyone if I didn't make concessions. I felt like she was emotionally manipulating me, and my fiancé completely agreed that this was unacceptable. After a lot of back and forth with my parents, I decided to put my foot down. I sent Emily a message saying that I was not going to change the registry, and that if she couldn't respect that, she was welcome to attend, but Mark would not be allowed to come. I explained that our wedding is about us, not about her drama, and we cannot risk having her fiancé involved in a situation that could lead to an argument or confrontation at the wedding. I also made it clear that if she wanted to bring him, she might need to reconsider attending at all. Emily blew up. She called me controlling and vindictive and accused me of ruining her relationship with Mark. She has since posted passive-aggressive messages to my parents about how I'm picking fights over stupid gifts and making them choose sides. My parents are split. My mom thinks I'm right and needs to protect my wedding day, but my dad says I'm overreacting and that Emily and Mark should be allowed to come. A few of my cousins have weighed in as well, and it's clear that the family is now divided. Some people are taking my side, saying I'm allowed to set boundaries for my wedding, while others think I should just give in so that everyone is happy. I feel like I'm in an impossible position because I want my sister at my wedding, but I also feel like I can't let her fiancé come if she's going to use him as leverage to manipulate me over things that are completely unrelated to our wedding. My fiancé and I have talked about a lot, and we're both of us firm in our decision. Since this whole thing blew up, Emily has been posting cryptic stuff on social media about family betrayals and how some people care more about things than relationships, and I can already feel the tension growing as the wedding day approaches. I honestly feel sad because I didn't want to get this far, but I also don't want to give in to threats and manipulation. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé attend my wedding because of her behavior and her attempts to manipulate me over our gift registry. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to give my half-sister a large sum of money after she asked me to co-sign a loan. I'm 29F and I have a half-sister, 22F, who I'll call Emily. We share the same dad but have different moms. Our relationship has always been complicated. Our dad has been pretty hands-off, and while he's never intentionally pitted us against each other, He's also never encouraged us to be particularly close. Emily and I have lived very different lives, and while I don't dislike her, I've never felt a strong bond. I've tried to stay neutral in most of the family drama, but a situation came up recently that has caused a huge fallout. A little background. I'm fairly financially stable. I own my apartment, I have a decent savings account, and I've been careful with my money because I've learned the hard way what it's like to struggle. Emily, on the other hand, has always had financial problems. She moves from one low-paying job to another, racking up small debts and bouncing around apartments because she can't keep up with rent. She's smart and capable in other ways, but money management has never been her strong suit. Our dad has helped her here and there, but he's older and isn't in a position to help her with big expenses. A few months ago, Emily reached out to me and asked if I could co-sign a $20,000 personal loan for her. Her plan was to use the money to start a small business selling handmade jewelry and accessories online. At first, I was a bit shocked. That's a huge amount of money to ask someone to co-sign. I asked her why she couldn't get the loan on her own, and she said that her credit score is too low and no one else in the family would help her. She promised me that she had a solid plan, that she'd repay the loan in full, and that she just needed a little help to get her business off the ground. I told her I'd think about it. I did a lot of research. I read about co-signing loans, the risks involved, and even talked to a financial advisor friend. The truth is, co-signing a loan means I would be 100% responsible if she defaulted. I could lose my savings, my apartment, and it could ruin my credit. I expressed my concerns to her, emphasizing that I could not afford to take on such a risk. She got upset, saying that I didn't trust her, that I was being selfish, and that families should help each other. I tried to explain that helping her doesn't necessarily mean putting myself in financial jeopardy. I offered alternatives. I could help her create a budget, connect her with local small business grants, or even lend her a smaller, manageable amount that I could afford to lose. But she refused all of it. She said nothing would work unless I co-signed the loan, and that I was being unreasonable. The situation escalated quickly. Our dad found out and tried to mediate. He told Emily that I was right to be cautious, and that co-signing such a large loan would be unwise. Emily accused him of taking my side and stormed out, saying I was abandoning her. Since then, she hasn't spoken to me, and she's been sending mutual friends passive-aggressive messages implying that I'm heartless and greedy. A few weeks later, I found out from another family member that Emily went ahead and took out a smaller loan through a credit union. She still seems to be struggling, and I feel a mix of relief and guilt. On one hand, I feel like I made the right decision to protect myself. On the other hand, I can't shake the thought that maybe I could have helped more, that maybe I should have figured out a way to support her despite the risks. Family gatherings have become awkward. My dad avoids bringing up the topic, but I can tell Emily still resents me. Mutual friends have subtly asked me what happened, and I feel stuck explaining myself without sounding like the villain. I understand why some people might think I should have helped her, that families should support each other in times of need. But $20,000 is not a small sum, and co-signing would have put me in a potentially disastrous financial position. I also worry about what precedent it sets. If I co-sign once, would she expect me to do it again every time she needed money? I guess I'm mostly wondering. AITA for refusing to co-sign my half-sister's loan, even though it caused a rift in our family? I want to support her in ways that don't put me at serious risk, but she sees it as me not caring about her at all. I can handle being seen as cautious or practical, but being labeled heartless by my own family feels heavy. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for setting a firm boundary with my half-sister? Or am I just being reasonable? Character count, 6,552 if you want. I can also write a second story in a similar long Reddit style that's even more dramatic and twisty. It tends to attract a lot of engagement. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a secret she kept from me for years? I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 33F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but had very different personalities. Emily was the kind of person who thrived in social situations, always surrounded by friends and classmates, while I was quieter, more introverted, and preferred smaller circles. Our parents never played favorites overtly, but it was obvious that Emily's successes were celebrated more publicly. I try to brush it off, but it always stung a little. When Emily got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for her. Her fiancé, Mark, 34M, seems like a nice guy, and they do seem happy together. She called me a few weeks after the proposal to share the news and immediately started talking about wedding plans. That's when things got weird. She mentioned she wanted to keep the wedding small and intimate, but when I asked about the guest list, she specifically excluded a few people, including me, from some of the pre-wedding events. I brushed it off as her trying to have a private bridal party, which is understandable. The real issue began when she asked me to be her maid of honor. Initially, I felt honored and excited. She explained that I would have responsibilities like helping her pick out the dress, organizing the bachelorette party, and giving a speech. I agreed, and we started planning. Over the next few months, I dedicated a lot of time to helping Emily. I flew out to her city multiple times, helped her with wedding dress fittings, and coordinated decorations for the rehearsal dinner. I genuinely wanted to make her day special. About 2 months ago, Emily called me in tears. She said she had something to confess that she had been keeping from everyone. At first, I was scared it was something serious, like a health issue. Instead, she revealed that Mark, her fiancé, is actually my half-brother. I froze. Emily explained that our father had an affair years ago, resulting in Mark's birth, but he never publicly acknowledged him. She said she only recently discovered this herself and realized it would be awkward if I were at the wedding. I didn't even know where to start. I confronted my dad privately. He admitted it was true, but begged me not to tell anyone, claiming it would ruin the wedding and the family's reputation. I was horrified. I felt betrayed on multiple levels, not just because my sister had kept such a massive secret from me, but because our father had hidden a part of my family for years. I also felt morally conflicted about attending the wedding. Even though Emily was my sister, and Mark had no idea, the idea of celebrating a marriage between my sister and my half-brother made me physically sick. I told Emily I couldn't be her maid of honor anymore and that I wouldn't attend the wedding. She exploded. She accused me of overreacting, being dramatic, and trying to ruin her happiness. She said I was making her feel guilty for something she didn't even know until recently, and that I was punishing her for being human. Our parents got involved as well, and my dad tried to guilt me into attending, claiming I was tearing the family apart. I tried to explain that it wasn't about being spiteful. It was about my own comfort and ethical boundaries. Things escalated further when our extended family started finding out about my refusal. Some relatives have taken Emily's side, saying I should put aside personal discomfort for family harmony. Others are sympathetic, recognizing the complexity of the situation. Emily posted a vague, emotional message on social media about family betrayal and hurt feelings without naming me. I got messages from friends and distant family asking why I was causing a scene or holding grudges over old secrets. It has been extremely stressful. I feel stuck. On one hand, I deeply love my sister and don't want to lose her. On the other hand, I cannot condone her marrying someone who is actually my half-brother. I've tried to suggest alternative ways to celebrate her engagement and future without attending the wedding, like a private lunch or a family dinner where Mark isn't present, but she refuses. She says my absence will ruin everything. I'm starting to question if I'm being too rigid. Some people have suggested that since Mark and Emily didn't know they were related, it's not incest in a legal or emotional sense, and therefore I should let it go. But I can't. My mental health is suffering, and I feel morally uncomfortable supporting something that, to me, is deeply wrong, even if it's not intentional. At this point, my relationship with Emily is strained. We talk occasionally, but there's a constant tension. Our parents are trying to mediate, but I feel like my feelings are being dismissed entirely. I'm worried that refusing to attend the wedding has painted me as the villain in the family story, and I'm not sure if reconciliation is possible. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering that her fiancé is actually my half-brother. I feel torn between protecting my own boundaries and maintaining family peace, but I also fear I might be judged harshly for not going along with the wedding. AITA for refusing to give my sister's wedding party my expensive photography services for free. So, this is going to be a long one, and I really hope I can explain the situation clearly because it's kind of complicated, but here goes. I, 28F, have been a professional photographer for about 6 years. I specialize in weddings, events, and portrait photography. Over the years, I've invested thousands of dollars into equipment, software, and continuing education to get to the point where I can charge for my services without feeling like I'm undercutting myself. My rates are on the higher side because I genuinely believe my work is worth it, and I've built a pretty solid reputation in my city. I've shot everything from intimate backyard weddings to multi-thousand-dollar destination events. I absolutely love my job, and I also love that it's how I pay my bills and save for the future. My sister, Maggie, 26F, has always been, well, let's say frugal. She's been living with her boyfriend, Ethan, 27M, for a few years, and recently they got engaged. Maggie called me a few weeks ago and started telling me about their wedding plans. She said she wanted it to be small, maybe around 50 people, and she already had a strict budget because she's been putting a lot of money toward a down payment for a house. Fine, I get that. Weddings are expensive, and I completely understand wanting to be mindful of money. Then she asked me if I would take photos at the wedding for free. At first, I thought she was joking. I laughed and said, "Maggie, you know that's my career. I literally make my living doing this." She said she understood that, but added, "I just thought since you're family, maybe you could make an exception. It would mean so much to me, and I'd really love to have you there capturing everything." I explained that I can't just give away my services. For one thing, it's my livelihood. For another, wedding photography isn't just snapping a few photos for fun. It's hours of planning, shooting, editing, and delivering finished work that often takes a week or more. If I do it for free, it sets a precedent, and I also end up losing business I could be booking for paying clients. She got a little quiet, but said she would be willing to cover a small fee if that was necessary. I asked how much she was thinking, and she suggested $500. To put this in context, my normal rate for a wedding of that size is $3,500. $500 would barely cover my travel expenses, let alone the hours of shooting and editing. I told her politely that $500 would not be enough, and that while I wanted to support her and be at her wedding, I simply couldn't work for a fraction of my normal rate. I suggested a compromise. If she really wanted to stick to her budget, she could hire a less experienced photographer at a lower price, and I could come just as a guest and take a few informal shots for her without the expectation of professional delivery. Maggie didn't like this idea at all. She got upset and said I was being greedy and selfish and that I was treating our family like paying clients instead of doing something nice for my sister. I tried to reason with her, saying that while I love her, I also have responsibilities and bills. I reminded her that I've never charged our family for small events like birthday parties or holidays, but weddings are different. She said that wasn't fair, and that since I make good money, I should be willing to help out my own sister. She even went so far as to say that if I don't do it, she might not invite me to the wedding at all. This hurt because I really want to be there, but I also don't want to undervalue my career or compromise my professional standards. After that conversation, things got tense. Our parents got involved and tried to mediate. They understand that my rates are reasonable and that I can't just work for free, but they also sympathize with Maggie wanting a low-cost wedding. My dad suggested maybe I could offer a small family discount, but even a 20% discount on my normal rate is still much higher than her $500 offer. Maggie started hinting that our relationship is strained because I won't help her, and she's been passive-aggressive in texts ever since. She keeps sending me articles about family helping each other and why you should put loved ones before money. Here's the thing. I love my sister and I want to support her. I've been trying to find a compromise, but she refuses any professional arrangement that isn't essentially free. I've considered giving her some of my old prints, offering a mini photo shoot a few months before the wedding, or just attending and taking casual shots, but she doesn't see those as substitutes. From her perspective, she wants the full professional wedding package at a fraction of the price. I don't think I'm in the wrong because this is literally my job and my income. I've spent years building my business, and I have clients who pay full price for my services. Saying yes to this would not only hurt me financially, but could also affect my reputation because I wouldn't have the same time and energy to deliver quality work. I'm willing to help her in other ways, like editing photos she takes herself, giving tips on poses, or helping coordinate with a hired photographer, but she insists that none of that is enough. The family is now divided. Some relatives think I'm being unreasonable and that I should help my sister out, while others understand that I have a business to run. Maggie has stopped talking to me as much, and honestly, I feel hurt because this is my sister, and I want to be part of her wedding, but I also can't compromise my career. So, AITA for refusing to photograph my sister's wedding for free? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her +1 rule? I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Megan, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, smart, charming, and basically every parent's dream, while I was quieter and more introverted. Despite this, we were close during our teen years, but as we grew older, the gap between us widened. It's never been overtly hostile, but there's always been this underlying sense of competition. Megan recently got engaged to a man named Jason, who is a nice enough guy, but their relationship has always been very whirlwind. They met in early 2023, got engaged in late 2023, and now their wedding is set for spring 2025. I was invited, which initially made me happy, but as I read the invitation, I noticed a footnote. We are keeping the wedding small, so no +1s for siblings. Now, normally, I wouldn't think much of this. I don't have a partner, and I'm fine attending events solo. The problem is that Megan has never treated me as someone who is enough on my own. Ever since I turned 25, she's constantly asked why I don't have a boyfriend, why I'm not married yet, and subtly suggested that I should be bringing someone to events to look normal. So this rule felt personal, even if I know rationally that it might not be. I decided to call her to clarify. I asked her why siblings couldn't have +1s, and she said that the venue is limited and that she needed to cap numbers strictly. I asked if it was negotiable. She said no. Then she added that most of the guests are couples and that she's worried about awkward seating if someone comes alone. At that point, I realized she wasn't saying, "We can't," as much as she was saying, "We don't want your single self there with extra space you aren't filling." I tried to laugh it off, but it didn't sit right with me. I spent a few days thinking about it. On one hand, it is her wedding, and she can make whatever rule she wants. On the other, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was another way she's made me feel like I'm always lacking. The more I thought about it, the more resentful I became. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back. Last week, my parents hosted a small family dinner to celebrate Megan's engagement. Megan made a huge show of talking about how she was only inviting a few friends and that she really wanted everyone to mingle in couples. Then she turned to me and said, "Don't worry, you don't need a date. This isn't about you anyway." I laughed nervously, but my cheeks burned. It was humiliating. My parents tried to smooth it over, but the damage was done. I've been struggling with what to do since then. I talked to a close friend about it, and she suggested that maybe I should attend the wedding and just embrace being alone, that it's not about me, and I shouldn't make it about my hurt feelings. I try to consider that, but the more I imagined sitting through a whole ceremony and reception while feeling like I don't belong, the more I felt physically tense. So, I sent Megan a message. I told her I couldn't attend the wedding, and I explained why. That the rule about no +1s felt exclusionary, and given our history, I didn't feel comfortable being there under those circumstances. I try to phrase it as gently as possible, emphasizing that it's not about her fiancé or the wedding itself, but about the dynamics between us that haven't felt supportive. Her response was immediate and sharp. She said I was overreacting, that it's not a personal attack, and that by refusing to attend, I was making everything about myself. She also said that I was punishing her for planning a wedding the way she wanted. I tried to reply calmly, but the message just sat there. My parents are now upset with me too. They said that I'm being dramatic and that Megan will be hurt forever if I skip her wedding. They said I should put aside differences for family events, and that if I can't do that, maybe I should reconsider how important my relationship with my sister really is. I feel torn. On one hand, I know that weddings are stressful and that she's entitled to make her own rules. On the other hand, this isn't just a casual oversight. It's consistent with how she's treated me for years, always implying I'm not enough, always making me feel like the outsider in the family. I don't want to let her behavior dictate my self-worth, and I also don't want to sit through a day feeling like a second-class guest. I haven't spoken to anyone else in the family besides my parents. My friends are mostly supportive of my decision, but one friend suggested that I might be throwing away the chance for closure by not attending. I'm not sure what closure would look like if sitting there is just going to reinforce old patterns. At this point, I'm staying firm. I've tried reaching out again to Megan to talk, but she hasn't responded, and honestly, I don't know if talking will change anything. I feel sad, angry, and guilty all at once. I can't stop thinking about how family events in general have always been a source of anxiety for me, and this feels like a culmination of that pattern. I'm wondering if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified in declining her wedding. I want to set boundaries for my mental health, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm being painted as selfish. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her no plus one rule and our complicated history. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emma, 32F. Growing up, we were close, but over the last several years, we've grown apart for a number of reasons, mostly because of her very controlling personality and tendency to involve herself in every aspect of my life. Despite that, I've always tried to show up for her when it mattered, because I genuinely wanted to maintain some connection. That is until now. Emma got engaged about a year ago to a guy named Mark, 35M. From the beginning, I had reservations about him. He's charming in a superficial way, but incredibly manipulative and dismissive, especially toward women. When they first started dating, he would make comments in front of me like, "You should be so lucky to have a sister who's successful," unlike some people, and other backhanded compliments that always felt like digs. I brushed them off at first, hoping it was just his awkward sense of humor, but it kept escalating. A few months into their relationship, I started noticing patterns that made me uncomfortable. He often talked down to Emma when she expressed excitement about her work or hobbies, and he consistently made snide remarks about my career choices. I confronted Emma once about it, saying I didn't think he was being kind, and she got very defensive. She told me that I was being judgmental and that she loved him, so I needed to respect that. I backed off because I didn't want to cause tension, but I kept my distance from Mark. Fast forward to a couple of months ago, Emma sent me a formal invitation to the wedding. Normally, I would be thrilled to celebrate my sister, but she also included a note that felt like an ultimatum. She said that Mark had requested that only guests who fully support our relationship be invited and that any objections or negative energy would be unwelcome. The wording felt very pointed to me, and given our past interactions, I wasn't sure I could attend in good conscience. I tried to talk to Emma privately about my concerns. I told her that I had serious reservations about Mark's behavior and that I was uncomfortable pretending to be okay with him. I emphasized that it wasn't about ruining her day, but about protecting my own mental health. She immediately reacted with anger. She accused me of being controlling and selfish and said that I was putting my personal feelings above our family. She also brought up that I had been distant in the past year, implying that my refusal to attend was just another example of me being unsupportive. At that point, I made the decision to decline the invitation. I wrote her a long message explaining that I loved her and wanted her to be happy, but I could not in good conscience celebrate her marriage while feeling disrespected by her partner. I offered to meet her before the wedding or help in other ways that didn't involve me attending the ceremony, but she didn't respond well. She called me a week later, screaming and crying on the phone, saying that I had ruined her special day and that she didn't want me in her life anymore if I couldn't get over my issues with Mark. The fallout has been intense. My parents are furious with me, saying I should support my sister no matter what, and that I'm being dramatic. My friends are split. Some say I did the right thing by standing up for myself, while others think I overreacted and should have swallowed my feelings for one day to avoid family conflict. Emma has blocked me on all social media and has told extended family that I am toxic and unsupportive, which has caused tension at family gatherings. I've been trying to maintain boundaries, but it's really stressful. I know family weddings are a big deal and that it seems harsh to refuse to attend your sibling's wedding, but I genuinely feel that being there would compromise my self-respect. I also worry about the kind of relationship Emma and Mark have. Seeing him treat her in ways I already know are controlling is upsetting to me. On the other hand, I can't help but feel guilty for hurting her and potentially alienating my entire family. I want to respect my own boundaries, but I'm worried I might have gone too far. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of bridesmaids? So, this is going to be long, and I'm not proud of the way things have gone, but I want an honest perspective because my family is now calling me a major jerk, and I honestly don't know if I am. I, 29F, have a sister, Claire, 32F, who's always been a little intense. Growing up, she was the golden child, and I was more the quiet, background sibling. That dynamic has shifted somewhat in adulthood, but there are still some lingering tensions. I live in a different state now, and for years, Claire and I had a reasonably neutral relationship. About 6 months ago, Claire got engaged to her fiancé, Mark. Initially, I was really excited for her. I've always wanted her to be happy, and I thought this might be the start of a new chapter where our relationship could become less competitive. Then she announced her bridesmaids. At first, I thought it was normal that she chose her closest friends, but then I saw the list. Out of 6 bridesmaids, all were her coworkers, and 2 were women she had barely known a year. None of them were family, not even me. She included her cousin who she isn't close with and a childhood friend who lives overseas, but still has a lot of clout in her social circles. When I asked about it, Claire said, "I just wanted people I spend time with now. We've grown apart, and honestly, you and I have never been that close as kids." That hit me hard. I don't think I've grown apart from her. We just weren't exactly joined at the hip as kids, and I always thought that was fine. I have always been supportive, and I've tried to be present for her life events whenever I could. But I didn't push too hard because I know she likes her independence. However, hearing her say that publicly to other family members at our family Christmas dinner really stung. I confronted her privately afterward, telling her that it hurt to hear her say that I'm not close enough for her wedding and that I felt like I was being excluded from something important. Claire got defensive. She told me she didn't want anyone who was obligated to be there and that her wedding is about the people she actively spends time with. I explained that she and I do spend time together, just not every week, and that she was being unnecessarily hurtful. She brushed it off, saying I was reading too much into it. Over the next few months, things got awkward. I tried to engage with her wedding planning, offering to help, giving suggestions for the venue, decorations, etc., and she kept politely declining. Invitations came later, but even then, I could tell she was making a subtle point by placing me at the very end of the seating chart and not including me in any pre-wedding events like the bridal shower or bachelorette party. Finally, about a month ago, she sent me a formal invitation with a note saying, "We hope you can make it, even though you won't be part of the bridal party. Your presence would mean a lot." When I read that, I felt like the "even though" was passive-aggressive. I spent the next couple of weeks weighing whether to go. Every time I imagined being there, sitting at a table surrounded by women who barely know me and being ignored in the wedding pictures, I felt anxious and upset. After a lot of thought, I decided to send her a message declining the invitation. I explained that I didn't feel comfortable attending a wedding where I felt deliberately excluded and that I was hurt by her choices and wording. I also tried to soften it by saying that I hoped she would have a beautiful day and that I would celebrate with her afterward. That's when the real fallout started. My parents and extended family blew up at me. They are all very close to Claire and said I was being dramatic and selfish. They insist that a wedding is a day to be celebrated, not a venue to air grievances, and that I should suck it up and go. Claire herself called me 2 days later in tears, saying I had ruined what should have been a happy time and that I was being spiteful. Some of my friends think I overreacted and that I should have gone anyway, even if it was uncomfortable, to support my sister. Others have told me I was right to assert my boundaries. The part that bothers me is that, at this point, almost no one in my family is speaking to me. My parents keep asking me if I'm willing to apologize and attend so everything can be normal again, but I honestly feel like my feelings were ignored from the start, and now I'm supposed to just swallow it and smile. I don't want to sabotage my sister's big day, but I also feel like if I go, it will be a very painful experience and won't improve my relationship with her at all. I want her to have a beautiful wedding, but I can't help but feel that she intentionally made choices that excluded me. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I felt deliberately excluded by her choice of bridesmaids and the way she treated me leading up to the event. AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her new boyfriend to our family Christmas. So, some context. I, 32F, have always been very close with my family, particularly my younger sister, Emma, 28F. Our family has a tradition where Christmas is always celebrated at our parents' house, and for the past few years, I've been the one organizing it. We have about 20 people in the house for the holidays, and I try to make it special, coordinating meals, decorations, and activities. My parents are getting older, so I really feel like it's important to maintain these traditions. Emma has been dating her boyfriend, Max, for about 3 months now. They met online, and while I'm happy she's found someone she likes, I honestly haven't had the chance to meet him in person. She's always bringing him to casual things or sending me pictures of them hanging out, but she hasn't made a serious effort to integrate him into family events. A few weeks ago, Emma casually mentioned that she was thinking about bringing Max to Christmas this year. I was surprised because, well, 3 months is not a long time, and this is a very family-oriented event where people she barely knows would be meeting him. I asked her if Max had met the family before, and she admitted he hadn't. I told her that traditionally, we didn't bring new partners to Christmas unless they had been dating for a significant amount of time or were serious enough that the family had met them beforehand. Emma got a bit defensive and said, "It's not fair. I should be able to bring who I want." I explained that it's not about control or fairness. It's about maintaining family traditions and making sure everyone feels comfortable. Bringing a new partner into a big family gathering without any prior introduction could be overwhelming for both Max and the family. I also pointed out that Christmas is a very sentimental and structured event for our family, and sudden changes can disrupt the flow. I suggested that she and Max could come to a smaller gathering beforehand or maybe a New Year's event instead. Emma got upset and accused me of being controlling and gatekeeping the family. She said that if I really love my sister, I would let her bring him and not make everything about traditions. My parents tried to mediate, and they said they were fine with either decision, but they also expressed that they understood why I was concerned. My other siblings backed me up quietly, but didn't want to get involved in the argument. A week later, Emma texted me, saying she would bring Max anyway, and that I was being selfish and unsupportive of her happiness. I told her firmly that I didn't think it was appropriate, and if she decided to bring him without warning, I wouldn't be responsible for coordinating or hosting the event. She sent a few passive-aggressive messages, but I didn't respond. Christmas morning came, and true to her word, Emma showed up with Max. I was taken aback because we had planned for a certain number of people, and suddenly there was an extra guest who nobody had met. Max seemed nice, but it was obvious he was uncomfortable. He didn't know anyone's names, didn't know how we do our gift exchanges, and seemed a little out of place. I tried to include him, but he kept looking around nervously and didn't engage much. Throughout the day, Emma kept making snide comments about how I was ruining her Christmas and how everyone else was welcoming Max except me. I felt frustrated because I was trying to maintain the atmosphere and traditions I had worked so hard to uphold, but felt like nothing I did was enough. At one point, my mom whispered to me that she understood why I had concerns and that she thought Max wasn't ready for such a big family event yet. After the meal, Emma pulled me aside and demanded that I apologize for treating her like a child and letting traditions get in the way of her happiness. I refused, explaining that my concern was for the comfort of everyone and the integrity of the family gathering, not about controlling her life. Emma got visibly angry, muttered something about, "I can't believe you care more about tradition than me," and stormed off with Max before dessert. Now, the aftermath. The family was divided. Some relatives said I was right because Max clearly wasn't prepared for such a big event, and it did cause awkwardness. Others sided with Emma, saying I should have just let her bring him and made him feel welcome. Emma is now barely speaking to me, and she's posted on social media implying that I'm difficult and controlling. I feel guilty for the fallout, but also frustrated because I tried to explain my perspective calmly and offer alternatives. So, AITA for telling my sister she couldn't bring her new boyfriend to Christmas. Or should I have just let her bring him even though it disrupted the family gathering? Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to invite my sister's new partner to my wedding because of a past incident. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Megan, 33F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but she could be very judgmental and competitive. Our parents often sided with her, so I learned early on that some of my opinions or preferences were invalid in their eyes. Despite that, we've maintained a functional adult relationship, though it's far from perfect. About 6 months ago, Megan started dating someone new, David, 35M. When she first told me about him, she was very enthusiastic, and I wanted to be supportive, so I agreed to meet him for dinner. From the first handshake, I felt uneasy. There was something about the way he spoke to me and looked at me that made me uncomfortable, though I couldn't put my finger on it immediately. A week later, we all went to a family gathering. Megan had invited David, and he was charming with everyone else. When it was just the two of us talking in the kitchen, he made a comment about my appearance that, while subtle, felt extremely condescending. I brushed it off at the time, but I could tell he was judging me the whole night. The tipping point came 2 months ago. Megan, David, and I went on a short road trip with some mutual friends. During the drive, David made a joke that felt like a thinly veiled insult about my career choices. I laughed it off at first because I didn't want to start drama, but later he leaned closer and said, "You're always so sensitive. Don't take it personally. It's just a joke." I froze. I realized then that he had a pattern of subtly undermining me while pretending to be funny. After that incident, I confronted Megan privately. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable around David because of how he treated me. Megan's reaction was not what I expected. She got defensive and said I was overreacting and that he's just sarcastic. You can't take a joke. I tried to explain that it wasn't just a one-time thing and that his comments and tone made me feel disrespected and judged. She told me she didn't want to start a fight and implied I was being unreasonable. I left the conversation feeling frustrated and unsupported. Fast forward to last month, Megan got engaged. I was genuinely happy for her, but I still had reservations about David. When she asked me if I would be attending the wedding, I said yes, but I also made it clear that I wasn't comfortable with David being at certain pre-wedding events like the bridal shower and rehearsal dinner, which I was helping to organize. Megan was furious. She argued that it was her wedding and she could invite whoever she wanted. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her wedding, only the events I was coordinating, but she said my stance was embarrassing and childish. Then came the real blow-up. During the bridal shower, I refused to participate in activities where David was present, and I politely excused myself from group photos that included him. Megan texted me afterward, calling me disrespectful and selfish for making the day about my feelings. She told me that if I couldn't accept her partner, maybe I shouldn't come to the wedding at all. This led to several tense weeks of family discussions. My parents tried to mediate, suggesting that I try harder to get along with David, which felt like they were dismissing my experiences entirely. I even reached out to a few mutual friends to see if I was overreacting. Most of them admitted they had noticed David making slightly cutting remarks, but none had seen anything overtly malicious. Finally, I made my decision. I told Megan that I would attend the wedding, but I would not be in the wedding party, nor would I participate in any photos or events where David was central. Megan exploded. She accused me of ruining her big day and claimed I was putting her in an impossible position with her fiancé. She also brought up every time I'd slighted her in the past, saying that my current stance was just part of a long pattern of jealousy and pettiness. The wedding day is approaching, and the tension has escalated. Megan is threatening to disinvite me altogether, and I feel like I'm stuck between attending and enduring constant stress or standing my ground and missing her wedding entirely. I've had to explain to mutual friends why I'm acting this way, and some are supportive while others think I'm being dramatic. I'm not asking anyone to dislike David, and I don't want to create family drama. I just don't feel safe or respected around him, and I also don't want to pretend everything is fine for the sake of a wedding. I've tried to communicate my feelings calmly and reasonably, but Megan insists that my discomfort is invalid. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to include Megan's fiancé in my participation in her wedding events due to past behavior that made me feel disrespected? Or am I overreacting by standing my ground, potentially risking our relationship forever? Character count, 6,265 if you want. I can craft a slightly longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more backstory, subtle family tension, and additional incidents with David to make it feel even more like a viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she suddenly announced she was moving across the country and needed a place to crash for a few weeks. So, some background. I, 32F, have lived in my city for about 10 years. I own a modest but comfortable apartment and work a demanding job in tech. My sister, Claire, 28F, has always been a bit unpredictable. She has a habit of making major life decisions without consulting anyone and expects people to drop everything to accommodate her. Historically, my parents have handled most of the fallout, which has left me in a position where I usually just nod and smile while she does whatever she wants. Last week, Claire called me out of the blue. She sounded frantic and excited at the same time. She told me she had impulsively decided to move to my city. She said she had already booked a one-way flight for next Friday, and she just needed a place to crash for a couple of weeks while she got settled. She didn't give me any details about where she would work, how she planned to pay rent, or even what her long-term plans were. When I asked if she had an actual job lined up, she laughed and said she'd figure it out when she got here. At this point, I should note that my apartment is a one-bedroom studio. It's cozy for me, but there is literally no room for another adult. I have a small sofa, but that's it. I explained this to her, trying to be gentle, and told her that I couldn't host her for 2 weeks, let alone longer. She got upset and said, "I thought we were close. You're my sister. Don't you want to help me?" I tried to compromise by offering to help her find temporary housing, like a short-term Airbnb or a sublet. She brushed it off and said, "I don't want to spend money on that. You should just let me stay. It's only a couple of weeks." I also suggested she could stay with our parents since they have a guest room, but she said that wouldn't work because I can't just live there again. I need to be independent. I was sympathetic to that, but it still felt unreasonable that she expected me to give up my living space with zero notice. I refused, and she got very upset. She started sending long texts accusing me of not caring about her, being selfish, and even saying that I always make everything about yourself and that I don't understand what family is. I tried to stay calm and explain my boundaries again. I said that if she wanted to move here, I could help her research apartments, jobs, or roommates, but I could not host her. Then things escalated. She started posting on social media about how some people's families are just cold and unsupportive, without naming me directly. A few mutual friends reached out to ask what was happening, and Claire told them I refused to help her when she was in crisis. I felt hurt because it made me look like the villain to people who only knew one side of the story. My parents called me and asked me to reconsider because they thought it was unfair that I wasn't letting her stay, but I stood firm. I explained that my apartment literally cannot accommodate another adult, and that she was being irresponsible by moving across the country without a plan. My dad sighed and said, "I know, but sometimes family has to make sacrifices for each other," which made me feel guilty, but I still didn't want to bend. Fast forward to today, Claire is in my city, and she found a cheap hostel for a week. She's staying there while scrambling to find an apartment and a job. She called me this morning to rant, saying that she's so disappointed in me and that she thought I would have her back. I told her that I still care about her and will help her with research or even show her around apartments, but I cannot let her live in my space. She hasn't spoken to me since the call. I feel torn because part of me thinks I should have been more accommodating, even just for a few nights, to help her transition. But another part of me thinks that her behavior is entitled and inconsiderate, and I don't want to reward that. I've always tried to support my siblings, but this feels like a boundary that should not be crossed. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay in my apartment when she moved across the country with no plan and expected me to host her for weeks. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Laura, 26F. Growing up, we fought like cats and dogs, but over the last few years, we've gotten much closer. I genuinely care about her and have always tried to be supportive of her decisions. That said, there's something about her fiancé, Tom, 30M, that has always rubbed me the wrong way, and a recent incident has made me question whether I should even be involved in her big day. Laura and Tom have been together for about 3 years. When they first started dating, I tried really hard to be welcoming. I made an effort to get to know him, invited him over for family dinners, and even helped them move into their first apartment together. But early on, I noticed some red flags. Tom is charming in public, but incredibly controlling in private. He constantly undermines Laura, subtly criticizes her choices, and expects her to cater to his needs in ways that seemed unreasonable. I initially dismissed these things, thinking that maybe I was overreacting or that it was just typical couple dynamics. The tipping point for me was 2 months ago. Laura and Tom were visiting for my birthday weekend. We were having a small get-together at my apartment with just close friends and family. During dinner, Tom started making jokes at Laura's expense, harmless in his mind, but uncomfortable for everyone else. When Laura tried to laugh it off, he raised his voice and scolded her, saying she was too sensitive and that she needed to lighten up. I was livid. I pulled him aside, told him it was inappropriate, and asked him to apologize. He refused, insisting that it was all in good fun and that I was overreacting. Laura, for whatever reason, didn't stand up to him, which really hurt me. After that weekend, I started noticing more patterns. He would subtly insult her in front of others, make decisions for her without consulting her, and even guilt her about spending time with family. I tried to talk to Laura about it gently, but she always brushed me off, saying that Tom was just being playful or that she was overthinking things. I began to feel increasingly uncomfortable and started to distance myself from him a bit. The wedding plan started in full swing shortly after. Laura and Tom invited me early on, and I accepted because, despite my misgivings, I love my sister and wanted to support her. But as the guest list and arrangements unfolded, I noticed things that made me uneasy. Tom insisted that everything had to be done according to his vision. He demanded certain vendors be used, certain seating arrangements, and even who could speak at the ceremony. Laura seemed to acquiesce to everything, which made me uncomfortable because she used to be so independent. Then came the breaking point. A few weeks ago, Laura asked me to help with some wedding logistics. I agreed, thinking it would be fun and a way to spend time together. However, when I arrived at the planning meeting with Tom, he immediately started belittling my ideas. He interrupted me constantly, told me I didn't understand how weddings work, and then proceeded to lecture Laura on how she should handle me because I was being difficult. I was shocked. I left the meeting early, and Laura texted me later apologizing for how Tom behaved. She said she understood why I was upset, but also mentioned that he's just stressed about the wedding, and that this is how he is when he's passionate. Over the next few weeks, the situation escalated. Tom began sending me texts that I found passive-aggressive, questioning my loyalty to Laura and implying that I was trying to sabotage their relationship. Every time I tried to discuss it with Laura, she reassured me that I was misreading things and that she was happy. I started to dread the wedding entirely. I realized that attending it would mean putting myself in a situation where I'd have to tolerate Tom's behavior for hours, possibly be publicly humiliated and indirectly endorse the way he treats my sister. Last week, I sent Laura a message explaining my feelings. I told her I could not, in good conscience, attend the wedding. I explained that I love her, but I cannot celebrate someone who treats her poorly. I also mentioned that this was not a judgment on her, but on his behavior, which I find toxic. Laura responded angrily. She said I was overstepping that I was trying to control her life and that I was making her wedding about me. She said she couldn't believe I would miss the most important day of her life over some imagined grievances. She also told me that our parents were upset with me and that they felt I was being dramatic. Since then, a lot of family members have reached out, mostly expressing disappointment. My parents said they understand my perspective, but feel I should put aside personal feelings for family. Some of my friends think I'm justified for protecting myself from a toxic environment. Laura has mostly stopped talking to me, though she occasionally sends passive-aggressive texts about how sad she is that I won't be there. I keep replaying everything in my head. I don't want to hurt my sister, but I also feel like attending her wedding would compromise my boundaries and force me to witness someone I believe is toxic to her on her biggest day. I've considered going, but only staying for a short while or just attending the ceremony. But even that seems like it might send the wrong message or give Tom the satisfaction of my presence despite my objections. I feel like I'm in an impossible position. On one hand, I want to support my sister unconditionally. On the other, I don't want to be complicit in enabling someone's poor behavior or sacrificing my own mental health for appearances. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? AITA for confronting my sister over what I consider an invasion of privacy and now being accused of ruining our family? I, 29F, have always had a pretty close relationship with my younger sister, Jenna, 25F, even though we've had our fair share of sibling rivalry moments growing up. Recently, though, things escalated in a way I never expected, and now my family seems to be taking sides in a way that's making me question whether I'm in the wrong. It all started about 6 months ago. My sister and I live in different cities, so we don't see each other as often as we used to. A few months back, she told me she was planning to renovate her apartment, and I offered to help her pick out some furniture and decorations since I've done some interior design projects in the past. She was thrilled, and at first everything was fine. The issue began when I found out she had been going through my personal things without asking. I have a digital journal app on my phone and computer where I jot down thoughts, frustrations, and personal reflections. One evening, while I was on a video call with her, I noticed that she was unusually quiet, and I spotted my journal open on her laptop in the background. At first, I thought maybe it was a coincidence or something she was reading accidentally, but then I saw a bunch of my most private entries highlighted and annotated with comments like, "Interesting," or "Why would she feel this way?" I was shocked and confronted her immediately. Jenna admitted she had been reading my journal entries for weeks. Her justification was that she was trying to understand me better and wanted to make sure our family dynamics didn't hurt me or anyone else. I felt like she had crossed a huge boundary. This wasn't about checking in on me. She had been reading my innermost thoughts without consent. I tried to stay calm, explaining that my journal was private and that it was extremely inappropriate for her to access it without asking. She got defensive, saying I was overreacting and that she was just concerned about me. I told her concern doesn't give someone the right to violate privacy, but she kept arguing that our family has always been close and that I should be more open with her if I didn't want her to read my journal. That made me even angrier because it felt manipulative. She was framing my anger as a problem with me rather than her actions. After that, I decided to take a step back from interacting with her. I didn't block her or anything, but I stopped sharing personal information and stopped visiting as frequently. Our parents noticed and asked what was going on. I explained what happened, but my sister immediately told them my response was an overreaction and that I had blown this out of proportion. Now, my parents are in a weird position. They don't condone snooping, but they also think I should forgive her quickly and that my reaction was too harsh. My sister has framed this as me punishing the family for a misunderstanding. To make matters worse, Jenna recently threw a small family gathering at her place. I didn't attend because I wasn't ready to be around her, and my parents accused me of creating tension. They said family is supposed to be about forgiveness and compromise, implying I was being unreasonable. Meanwhile, my friends are on my side and say I did nothing wrong by standing up for my boundaries, especially given the nature of the violation. They argue that reading someone's private journal is not the same as casually snooping through old emails. It's deliberate and personal. But I can't shake the feeling that maybe I'm overreacting or that I've escalated the situation to the point where the whole family now views me as the difficult one. Adding to the complexity, Jenna keeps trying to contact me through messages and calls, saying she wants to reconcile and that she only wanted to help. She's even suggested that if I forgive her, things could go back to normal, but I feel like that would send the wrong message about privacy boundaries. I'm torn between maintaining my boundaries and keeping my family relationships intact. I also feel guilty because I could see my parents' point about family harmony, but I keep coming back to the fact that my privacy was violated in a very intimate way. I've considered apologizing for the way I reacted, but I don't feel I did anything wrong. I was shocked, hurt, and upset, and I think confronting her directly was necessary. I also worry that if I do apologize, just to smooth things over, it would undermine my stance on personal boundaries and privacy. I guess I'm reaching out here because I honestly don't know if I'm in the wrong. Did I overreact? Should I have just let it go and try to maintain the peace? Or is standing up for my privacy reasonable, even if it causes tension in the family? I just want to know if I'm the asshole for confronting my sister over something that feels like a huge betrayal, even though it's tearing my family apart. Character count, 6,543 if you want. I can also write a second story in a similar style, but with a slightly different family/ethical dilemma, which tends to get a lot of engagement on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for potentially ruining my friend's wedding over a disagreement about tradition. I, 32F, have always considered myself a pretty easygoing person, but something happened recently that has caused a major rift between me and some of my closest friends, and now I'm questioning if I truly handled things the right way. I've been best friends with Laura, 31F, since college, and over the years, we've shared so many milestones: graduations, jobs, house purchases, and even planning vacations together. So when Laura got engaged last year to her fiancé Evan, 34M, I was over the moon and couldn't wait to help her plan her wedding. I honestly thought I'd be one of those friends who gets all in on wedding planning, helping with every detail from dresses to catering to seating arrangements. When Laura first started talking about the wedding, she mentioned that she wanted a completely traditional ceremony. By traditional, she meant a very formal, religious-style wedding, which is not really my style at all, but I was willing to respect that. The problem started when she began outlining what traditional meant to her. She explained that she wanted a very specific seating arrangement where men and women would be strictly separated during the ceremony. She insisted on having a live gospel choir, and she wanted a strict dress code that included long sleeves and high necklines for all female guests. Additionally, she wanted to hire a very particular photographer who specialized in old-fashioned poses and explicitly requested that no candid shots be taken. At first, I thought I could just roll with it. I even offered to help find decorations and help with invitations. Things seemed fine until the week of the wedding when I noticed some inconsistencies in the way the guest list was handled. Laura had sent out invitations specifying the strict dress code, but some of the friends in our group interpreted the guidelines loosely, wearing outfits that were either more casual or didn't adhere to the color scheme she wanted. I thought this wasn't a huge deal and mentioned that people should feel comfortable, but Laura got very upset, saying that guests not following the rules would ruin the aesthetic and solemnity of the ceremony. The real conflict came during the rehearsal. Laura asked me to coordinate where everyone would sit, and she had this incredibly strict chart. She had made a rule that women could not sit next to men they weren't related to, and she even had a specific order for cousins, friends, and coworkers. I started suggesting that maybe we could be a little flexible, because some of the guests were couples and others were very close friends who might feel awkward being separated. Laura snapped and said that this wasn't negotiable. I tried to back down and do as she asked, but then she asked me to handle her little cousin, Sophie, who is 10, because Sophie gets very anxious in structured settings. Laura wanted Sophie to sit at a specific table, away from certain family members. I tried to explain to Laura that forcing Sophie to sit away from her older siblings might upset her, but Laura dismissed me, saying I was overreacting and that she knew what was best. At that point, I realized that if I continued helping in the way she wanted, I would be participating in something that might make her guests uncomfortable, especially kids. I made a choice to speak up during the rehearsal dinner in front of her parents and some close friends. I explained that while I understood and respected Laura's vision, I thought the seating arrangement and dress code might be too rigid and could cause stress for certain people. I suggested minor adjustments that would still keep the overall structure but allow some flexibility. The reaction was immediate. Laura's face went pale, and she whispered that I was ruining everything and disrespecting her vision. Her parents looked shocked, and Evan tried to mediate, but Laura pulled him aside and told him she didn't want me involved in the rest of the planning. At first, I was hurt, but I thought maybe it was for the best. I decided to step back from any further planning duties, thinking it would ease tension. The wedding day arrived, and I attended as a guest. From what I could see, Laura was incredibly tense, constantly checking tables and scolding staff over small details. Some guests whispered to me that the seating arrangements were confusing and that they felt uncomfortable being forced to sit in specific spots. Sophie, the little cousin, cried a few times because she couldn't sit with her favorite cousins, which broke my heart. On the other hand, some people commented that everything looked perfect according to Laura's vision, so it seemed she got the ceremony she wanted. After the wedding, Laura sent me a long text that basically said I had overstepped my role as a friend and that I had ruined her special day by questioning her decisions publicly. She said she felt betrayed and implied that I should have just followed her lead, no matter what I personally thought. Some of our mutual friends reached out to tell me they understood my concerns but didn't want to get involved. I've been feeling guilty ever since. On one hand, I know I was trying to advocate for people who might have been uncomfortable, especially children. On the other hand, I did confront Laura publicly during a moment that was supposed to be her own rehearsal celebration, and I could see how it might have embarrassed her. I tried apologizing for the way I brought it up, but Laura hasn't responded. I'm torn because I genuinely think that some of my suggestions were reasonable and could have prevented stress for certain guests, but I can't shake the feeling that I cross a line by voicing my opinion in front of others. Was I the asshole for speaking up? Or should I have stayed completely silent, even though I thought things were heading toward unnecessary tension? AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices at my wedding? This all started about 6 months ago. My fiancé, Alex, and I have been planning our wedding for over a year. We both come from relatively large families, so it's been a juggling act to make sure everyone is happy with the plans. My sister, Dana, has 2 kids, ages 5 and 7. She has always been a little free-spirited with parenting, which I normally wouldn't have an issue with, but this time, it became a problem. I want to start by saying I love my niece and nephew, and I adore Dana, but she has a habit of letting her kids do whatever they want, even in social situations where it's not appropriate. They often run around, yell, throw things, and ignore any instructions, and she rarely intervenes. We've had some small conflicts in the past, mostly during family gatherings, but I try to stay patient and not make a big deal of it. When we started planning the wedding, I wanted it to be an elegant, formal affair. Alex and I decided on a sit-down dinner, a string quartet, and a strict no running around inside rule. We made it clear on the invitations that children are welcome, but they are expected to behave, and there would be a designated play area for them. I thought that would be enough. Fast forward to the wedding day. Everything was going beautifully at first. Guests were arriving. Everyone looked amazing, and the ceremony went off without a hitch. The problem started at the reception. Dana arrived with her 2 kids, and within 10 minutes, they were running around the hall, knocking over decorations, and screaming during the speeches. I politely asked her if she could get them to sit down and enjoy the dinner, and she laughed it off, saying, "Oh, they're just having fun, don't worry about it." I didn't want to cause a scene in front of our guests, so I tried to ignore it, hoping she'd step in. She didn't. By the time dinner started, the kids had spilled drinks on multiple tables, pulled napkins off, and were climbing on chairs. One of our family friends even got knocked over by my nephew, and he was upset. I finally had enough. During the dancing portion of the evening, I pulled Dana aside and said, "This isn't acceptable. The kids need to be controlled. This is our wedding, and you promised they would behave." She got defensive immediately. She said I was being overly dramatic and controlling, and that I should just let them have fun. I told her that letting kids run around unsupervised at a wedding is not fun. It's dangerous and disrespectful to the other guests. She stormed off, yelling at me in front of few other family members that I was the worst sister ever. After that, she refused to come back to the dance floor or participate in the reception. Her kids continued to cause minor chaos, but thankfully my aunt and cousin helped contain them for the rest of the evening. I didn't speak to Dana for the rest of the night, and she left shortly after. The wedding ended up being beautiful despite the disruption, but I couldn't shake the tension from the day. A few days later, Dana called me. She was furious and accused me of publicly humiliating her in front of our family and friends. She said I overreacted and that I shouldn't have confronted her at all. She insisted that my approach was mean-spirited and controlling, and she's considering not speaking to me until I apologize. I tried to explain that it wasn't personal. It was about the behavior of her children at a formal event, and I felt it was my responsibility to maintain a safe and enjoyable environment for all guests. She didn't want to hear it. My parents are split on the issue. My mom thinks I did the right thing and that Dana has always been too lenient with her kids, while my dad believes I could have handled it more diplomatically. Several friends who attended the wedding have also weighed in, and most of them are sympathetic to my position, saying the kids were out of control and something needed to be said. I'm feeling really conflicted. On one hand, I don't like the idea of hurting my sister's feelings or causing a rift in the family. But on the other hand, I feel like I had a right to enforce boundaries at my own wedding. The part that's eating at me is that she seems genuinely convinced that I am the villain here. I'm wondering if I should reach out to her again, apologize for the confrontation itself, but not for asking her to control her kids, or just leave it alone and hope she cools down over time. I honestly didn't intend to start a feud. I just wanted the evening to go smoothly. AITA for confronting my sister about her kids at my wedding. Character count, 6,478 if you want. I can also make a second, slightly more dramatic version that leans into the popular Reddit viral style, with more intense family conflict and morally gray dilemmas. This could hit even closer to the stories that gain thousands of comments. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my siblings' wedding because of their last-minute demands? So, a bit of background. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Ben, 29M, who has always had a flair for dramatics and a tendency to expect the world to bend to his whims. I've generally tolerated it because, well, he's family. But recently, things have escalated in ways I wasn't prepared for, and now my entire extended family is divided. Ben got engaged to his fiancée, Chloe, about 6 months ago. From the start, I offered to help in any way I could: venue suggestions, vendor recommendations, even financial advice, because Chloe's parents are overseas and not really involved. I've always loved event planning, so I genuinely thought I'd be excited to help. At first, it was great. I even offered my house as a potential venue for a small, intimate wedding. My backyard is decent-sized, and my husband, Mark, and I have hosted multiple events without any issues. Fast forward 3 months, and Ben calls me in a panic because he says the wedding planner he hired doesn't understand his vision. He wants to move the entire ceremony to my house. Not a problem, I thought. But then he starts listing demands that honestly felt outrageous. He wants me to rent a giant tent that covers my entire backyard because he doesn't like the idea of being outside in case it rains. Pay for all catering, even though he said he had a budget and I offered to give him recommendations within that budget. Rearrange my landscaping to match a vintage enchanted forest theme. Take a week off work before the wedding to help with decorations and setup, even though my job is pretty demanding. At first, I tried to compromise. I said I could host a small backyard wedding if he scaled down the guest list, and maybe I could help with some decorations, but couldn't take a whole week off. He immediately blew up at me, saying I wasn't being supportive and that I was ruining the most important day of his life. I tried to explain that the financial and logistical demands were too much for us, especially since my husband and I have a toddler and 2 dogs to manage as well. Then things got worse. He started texting me every day with urgent lists of things I had to do or buy. He even showed up at my house one Saturday morning unannounced with Chloe, measuring spaces in my backyard and taking pictures. I felt trapped and frustrated. I told him I was withdrawing the offer to host the wedding, citing the financial strain and the unrealistic expectations. He flipped. He started messaging everyone in our family, painting me as selfish and unable to support family milestones. This is where it really spiraled. My parents called me, saying I was being unreasonable and that I should just suck it up for the sake of my brother. My sister-in-law, Ben's wife-to-be, Chloe, posted on social media, tagging me in a story about how families should support each other, and it got over 200 likes in a few hours. I felt blindsided and humiliated. I tried to explain my side to the family, but apparently, any attempt to clarify was interpreted as making excuses or guilt-tripping. My husband has been incredibly supportive, saying that Ben's behavior is manipulative and not reflective of a healthy relationship. But even he admits that it's a tough position because Ben's so persuasive in framing me as the villain. Things reached a peak when Ben decided to book another venue last minute, but then sent me a message asking if I could cover the overflow seating for guests who couldn't fit. He literally wanted me to rent chairs, tables, and even extra bathrooms on top of what I was already supposed to do. I refused, and he called me, yelling for an hour about how I ruined his dream wedding. He then texted me a screenshot of my mother saying that I owe Ben this, which is false because my mom didn't tell me that directly. I feel guilty because I love my brother and want him to have a happy wedding, but I also feel like he's completely ignoring boundaries and expecting me to shoulder responsibilities that aren't mine. My parents and extended family are all taking sides now. Some say I'm being petty. Others are supportive and agree that Ben's expectations are excessive. To add another layer, my brother has started bringing my toddler into the conversation, suggesting that since my child will be there, it would be easier for everyone if you just hosted at home. That made me lose my patience because I feel like he's weaponizing my child to guilt me. I'm not trying to sabotage his wedding. I've offered advice, helped with guest lists, and even helped him find a new venue. But anytime I say no to any of his extreme requests, I'm labeled selfish and uncaring. At this point, I just want to step back completely, but I worry about the long-term family fallout. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding after he made a list of demands that are financially, logistically, and emotionally unreasonable. I feel like I've tried to help in every other way possible, but I can't bend over backward to make his dream wedding happen at my expense. AITA for refusing to let my in-laws dictate how I raise my child, even if it caused a family feud. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, Mark 31M, for 4 years. We have a 2-year-old daughter, Emma. For context, Mark and I have always had a pretty balanced relationship when it comes to parenting decisions. We communicate, we compromise, and we try to do what's best for Emma. That said, we have had one recurring issue that keeps causing tension: his parents. Mark's parents, Janet, 59F, and Greg, 62M, have a very traditional approach to raising kids. They are wonderful people in many ways, generous, caring, and genuinely excited about being grandparents. But they have extremely strong opinions about parenting, some of which clash with my approach. I want to preface this by saying I understand every parent has a right to their opinions, but the way they express theirs has become a real problem. It all came to a head recently. Mark and I decided to transition Emma from formula to whole milk and start giving her more adult meals instead of baby food. We had been easing her into solids and were very intentional about nutrition and portion sizes. I did a lot of research, and we agreed this was a reasonable next step for her age. When we mentioned this to Janet and Greg, they immediately went into full-on lecture mode. Janet said that Emma was still too young for cow's milk, and that we were ruining her digestion, while Greg insisted that the only acceptable meals for toddlers were pureed vegetables and oatmeal for years. I tried to calmly explain our reasoning, citing the pediatrician's guidance and Emma's development, but they wouldn't listen. Instead, they implied that Mark and I were spoiling her and that they couldn't trust us to make the right decisions. At first, I tried to brush it off and avoid conflict, but the comments kept coming. Every family visit turned into a debate. They criticized her diet, her bedtime routine, the way I bathe her, the clothes she wears, even her toys. I started noticing that I was feeling anxious every time they came over because it was inevitable that they would make a judgment about something. The breaking point came last week. We invited them over for dinner, hoping to have a relaxed evening. I spent hours preparing Emma's meals, She's now eating soft pasta with vegetables and small pieces of chicken, all age-appropriate. When they sat down, Janet immediately grabbed the spoon from Emma's hand and insisted on feeding her oatmeal, claiming it was the only safe choice. I politely asked her to let Emma try her meal first. She rolled her eyes and said I was a controlling parent who didn't know what was best for my own child. Mark tried to intervene, but he also seemed torn. He loves his parents and wants them to have a relationship with Emma, but he also agrees with me that they are overstepping. I finally told them that while we appreciate their love and concern, Emma's diet is our decision as her parents. I asked them to respect our choices and stop interfering. Janet stood up, yelling that I was undermining the family and tearing us apart. Greg tried to calm her down, but ended up agreeing with some of her points, which frustrated me even more. After that evening, there was a lot of tension. Mark was caught in the middle. He understands my perspective, but also feels guilty because his parents are upset. They've since reduced contact slightly, but when we do see them, every interaction is strained. Janet sent a message calling me overly rigid and saying I'm poisoning the relationship between her and her granddaughter. I haven't responded. I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh or if I should have been more accommodating, even if it meant letting them have more influence over Emma's meals and routines. I don't want to alienate them completely because Emma loves them and they're her grandparents, but I also feel strongly that I need to enforce our boundaries. Some friends and coworkers say I'm in the right for protecting my parenting choices, while others suggest I'm being unnecessarily confrontational and should try to compromise more for the sake of family harmony. Mark seems supportive but also frustrated because he doesn't want to hurt his parents or force me to choose between them and him. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my in-laws dictate how I raise my child, even if it caused a family feud. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.